Welcome to Dive Beyond Sport. I'm Freddie Woodward.
And I'm Yona Wisdom. Gary Smith, welcome. Thank you for joining us. How are you today?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you guys for having me. It's a pleasure to be on the show.
Yes, we've got audio. Yes. Sorry, I had to break
You're not supposed to give it away, man.
Sorry.
That's the reason why we pre-record, so we can get away with these kind of issues.
Sorry.
Nevertheless, it makes for a very exciting start to the podcast.
Yes, absolutely.
Gary, it's best coming from your mouth. What is your, we'll call it an elevator life story? How can you sum yourself up, your journey to this point?
Yeah, I mean, it's been quite a journey that I've been on. So yeah, my background is trampoline, and I started trampoline when I was around about 10, 11. I just took it up as a recreational sport, and it kind of just evolved. And like a pinnacle of my career was competing in Athens Olympics in 2004. So that was kind of like my ultimate goal and my dream to make the Olympics, and then from there I just by doing this sport, the journey it's taken me on, then ended up getting me going to Cirque du Soleil, and then I came back, and then I was a national coach for the trampoline program, and now I've completely pivoted again, and now in sports development within my local county, which is I'm still involved in sport. And what I love about it is that, you know, from starting trampoline, it's just opened up so many doors for me to do many different things.
Well, isn't that the amazing thing about sport, that last sentence? How, I mean, not only sport, but it's just one of those amazing things that gives so many people different opportunities. I remember a young friend of mine, well, a friend of ours, Yona and I, he was from Stockton-on-Tees up in the north, you know, not very many opportunities, not a loads going on, but he started diving, and then suddenly, you know, that took him around the world and did all sorts of stuff. And it's all right. And you saying that then, Gary, just triggered that memory to me, because it just suddenly gives you access to all these experiences. And I'm super excited to speak to you, Gary, as well, because what I think is interesting is you've got a bit of a combination. You're a little bit ahead of the two of us, but you've got a kind of combination. Sorry, just a little only tap. But what I'm getting myself in trouble already. But what I mean is, obviously you competed in the Athens Games, and you know, that's a big. Yona and I both competed in the Olympics, and then but I ran away to the circus and did that for a long time. Yona hasn't done that. When he retired, he's gone in almost immediately into performance coaching. He's working with Aquatics GB right now after retiring last year, and it's kind of like you've lived both of those journeys and gone through all the way to the other side, and now you're in sports development. I can't wait to sort of talk to you a bit more about that. And initially, like, how has that sort of shaped your identity? Because everything does seem to come back to trampolining at the core. So if you could maybe just talk on that a little bit.
I mean, I think the base of my identity is as a trampolinist. And I remember, like, at school, all my friends would say, "Oh, here's Gary, the trampolinist. He's a gymnast. Hey, can you do a flip?" You know, that was always kind of like what I got at school, and pretty standard, maybe similar with you guys, you know. And you know what? Yeah. I loved it. I loved that part of it. And, you know, and I used to play football, and when I scored a goal for my local team, I used to do a back somersault. And again, I was known for that, and people would egg me on to try and score. So, you know, like my identity is kind of wrapped up in that acrobatics and I guess that showmanship side of it. So yeah, you know, and I guess like throughout like my journey in like the different like roles that I've done and going to the Cirque, I guess my identity it's just grown and changed, but like still being part of that base, you know, of an acrobat, you know. And then like I was an acrobat, and I was like obviously in the competing, which was kind of a like very different to then going into performing, because and then kind of performing 10 shows a week. So I kind of had like different layers. I had to learn some different skills and being on stage and that stage presence. But it all kind of started from that trampoline career. And like I said earlier, it opened up so many opportunities, and I got to meet some fantastic people. And yeah, I wouldn't change it at all.
Something that you just kind of said in there has completely changed the direction that I wanted to take this, because I had a question in mind, but I want to go a different route. You spoke about performing 10 times a week whilst you were doing Cirque, which is insane, because like when you're obviously an athlete and you're competing in trampoline and diving, you perform a few times a year, not even 10 times a year, right? And you want that performance to be perfect. And you're challenging yourself, pushing yourself to do different skills, and you want it to be perfect. With Cirque, every performance has to be perfect, right? Because you're performing to a crowd, you can't make mistakes. Maybe you're doing, I don't know, slightly easier skills that you're a bit more comfortable with. You're not really pushing the boat too far, but you just said also that you were trying different skills and doing different things. So that must have been really difficult, actually, to do like perfect performances so frequently in the week. Like how was that as a mindset, as an approach, compared to maybe your athlete experience?
Yeah, I guess as an athlete, I mean, like you guys know, is that, you know, we have like our yearly plan, and we have those big major competitions that are in our diary, and that's what we're working to be ready for and at our peak. And then that was kind of a big learning for me when I went into Cirque, is that how do I manage my energy? You know, so I've gone from like training and then competing at like a few competitions a year to actually probably training less and performing more. And so it's kind of, how do I prepare myself more mentally and then physically? Physically, you know, I'm still kind of, you know, backstage and doing what I need to do for the shows. And it's just kind of making sure that I'm in the right mindset. And I have like when you're at Cirque, it's very different, because I've gone from competing individually into like a group act. So I have a team around me, and we're working together as a team. So it's a different feel when you're with that team. You know, we obviously we're doing it together. So, you know, we want to make sure we put on the best show for the audience that are there. So it was a bit of a change. And the other thing that it took me a bit of time to get used to is like, I'm at like competitions, we'll get to go on getting like a one touch on the trampolines before competing. When we were at Cirque, I was literally jumping on a little trampette backstage, and then my first trick was a jump off a 5-meter wall straight onto the trampoline. So, you know, I had to learn those those skills, and it's just more like maybe a bit more visualization and stuff backstage. But, you know, the more shows you do, the more confident you get, and you just build up. You just build up that skill set after a while.
That's brilliant. I went to see my first ever Cirque show earlier this year, actually second ever Cirque show. I got to see a bit of a Cirque show during the opening ceremony of the 2015 Pan American Games in Toronto, which was pretty cool. They were on bikes and stuff. And then I went to the Corteo show at the Royal Albert Hall earlier this year,
brilliant, yeah.
Which was immense to watch, and all the trampolines. Yeah, fantastic to watch, super cool. I know that I couldn't do it. My performance is certainly different, but I want to kind of actually now flick back to my original question and go back to your journey as an athlete. At what point did you know that your identity was aligned with the Olympics? At what point did you know that you wanted to be an Olympian? How did that part of your journey kind of transpire?
Yeah, I guess for trampoline, it's quite interesting, because I mean, I started trampoline like back in like the early 90s, and at that point trampoline wasn't even an Olympic sport. So it wasn't like I knew that I wanted to be an Olympian at that point, because trampoline wasn't in the Olympic sports. But what I knew is that I just loved competing against the best, you know. So during my competition time, it wasn't always about, like, for me, it wasn't always about like winning and the outcome. I just wanted to always be competing against the best. And I remember a couple of competitions where like I had the option of competing up in like the men's category or staying in my age group, and I probably would have done much better in my age group. But, you know, there were some heroes of mine jumping in that, and I was like, I want to be competing against these guys. So that was like, I guess like I knew early on that I just wanted to be competing there. So, and then as I got older, I started obviously improving, made like the British team, and I made a couple of like junior world age group championships, and got my first taste of like international competition, and it was brilliant. You know, like my first one was in Australia, so I was like, well, I couldn't beat, you know. So like got to go to Australia, compete at world age, and it was almost like there was a point once I competed there that I was like, okay, I'm ready now to become a senior athlete. And I remember having that conversation with my coach, and you know, and he was like, "Well, do you want to do another year as junior?" And I was like, "No, I like, this is what I want to do." So that's when we started planning for that. And then, like within the country, I was probably ranked around about 6th or 7th in like the early 2000s. So, you know, I was like a bit of an underdog, and I was just doing my thing and training. So it wasn't until after trampoline debuted in the Olympics in Sydney, and I saw like our British guys competing there, that I was like, oh yeah, that's what I want to do. So it was at that moment that, you know, I had 4 years to do the best I could and give myself that best opportunity just to kind of get out there and mix it up with the rest of like the best athletes in the country. And then you just gradually kind of progressed up, and and then it got to like, there was only one qualification event, which was the World Championships in 2003. So you had to finish it, like there was only 16 that represent in trampoline, so I had to finish in a certain position, and at that point we got given a wild card, which we didn't know until later on in the year, which I guess for me was lucky because I continued to train. So, you know, we didn't know about the wild card until quite late on. So I kind of put myself in a good position because I was training almost ready for whatever would come our way, really.
And that's so cool to me, is because I think you said in the beginning that you started completely recreationally. Because I think for Yona, well, certainly for me, I think you as well, Yona, right? We actually started from a talent pathway.
Yeah.
So we get in, we start, and it's like, okay, we're glad you're here, but you, just so you know, kids, like the goal here is to try and make the Olympic Games for you guys. So we sort of, without really thinking about anything, we were just taken on this journey. It's like, if you put the work in, if you stay with it, the Olympics could be the goal. Whereas, I mean, I'm lucky to have gone through that, but I think what's so interesting in your case, Gary, is that it's sort of like you've just shaped that for yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, like if I go back to when I started, we used to have to get out our trampolines before the session. I mean, I was so young that I could only carry the mats, and I would, you know, we would start like, you know, I'd probably do like, it started off with one session a week where I did 1 hour on a Saturday morning, and then I kind of progressed a little bit. They invited me to another session, and I got to a point where I was doing about maybe like 3 sessions a week. But then like I was very fortunate, and that my club had just opened their own purpose-built trampoline center, and that then just opened up so many more opportunities for me. I went from training 3 times a week to 6 times a week, with even better facilities, a foam pit, so that I can even do even more skill development. And it was at a really good time where I was about 16, so I was getting more physically stronger. So things just kind of got fit into place, and it kind of goes back, and sometimes I reflect on it and think like the environment that was there was almost like a high performance environment for me, which was brilliant. And like I say, it came at just the right time, like for my development as a trampolinist.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's such a cool journey, as Freddie mentioned, like going from, for us, you know, the Olympics was laid out from the start, and I mean, it was cool for me because I found it phenomenal, and I just so happened to start in the same year that it actually was the Athens Olympics, and you know, that's what really engaged me. That's what made me want to get to that level, because I just thought it was really cool. And you know, once I could make it, you know, I ticked off that box, and I could imagine my young self like super proud, which is obviously a totally different way to you coming into it. And you know, with you only, I guess, getting in at the last moment with the wild card, and then going on to make an Olympic final. What was the most valuable kind of aspect of that Olympic final, making it for you kind of personally, but also professionally in your career?
Yeah, I think like when I found out that I was going to the Olympics, and I guess at that point, I mean, I just got the wild card. I was quite low ranked. I was like an underdog, and I think my goal was to make the final. And and like you kind of like dream that, okay, I just want to deliver the best routine I can in that moment. And I remember it's so funny because like maybe the same for you guys is that our competition is like it's a 3-hour competition. I get to do 2 routines that last 20 seconds. And then if I make top 8, then I get to do 1 more routine that lasts 20 seconds, and I remember that first routine and I got on and my legs were just jelly. And I was just jumping for ages. I just couldn't find the right jump to take off from. And like even like in my mind,
is there like is like a maximum of jumps that you can do? Is there a maximum of jumps?
Yeah,
that you
I
can
mean,
do?
there's a time limit. Yeah, there's a time limit. Yeah, I mean, it felt
Okay,
like forever.
right.
I was jumping forever. That's what it felt like. So yeah, I was just taking these jumps, and even like in my mind, I was like, I'm not even going to take off here. But anyway, I eventually took off, and once I felt like I was in flow of the routine. Did that routine, that was like our like the set routine, which was the first one. It's more about the form and but then the difficulty. Then our second routine was more, you can add the difficulty in there. So the second routine was good, was strong, and I think like I was known more for like my consistency. Like I was quite a consistent athlete at competitions, so I very rarely made a mistake or didn't complete a routine. So, and obviously that comes from just a lot of preparation. I did a lot of preparation and I did many routines in training. So I knew once I got over the fact that I'm in the Olympic Games, which no one, like, I'd never been in that environment of like, there was like 15,000 people. Normally there's like a few hundred at our competitions, and once I got over that, I qualified for the final. And then I knew going into the final that I just had nothing to lose. And I just enjoyed it, and I just felt free. And I just delivered the best routine that I've ever delivered. And that's what I'm most proud of. Wow. Is that not everyone gets that feeling, or you hear the stories about the Olympics where they just don't deliver. And I guess I was lucky enough that, I delivered the best routine in that final. And that's probably what I remember the most in that very short period of time of that competition.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that was going to be one of my competitions, actually. If you had one of my questions, yeah. if you had
you prepping for Athens.
Oh man, Freddie.
You're making a comeback. Yeah, no chance. Yeah, one of my questions was going to be if you had a standout memory from, obviously, it's a few years ago now, but if you had a standout memory from Athens, but that's it. I mean, it sounds like you sort of answered that, just putting your best routine down in the final.
In the stand-up one within the competition, but I mean, there's loads throughout the event. I mean, because I was the only male gymnast representing Great Britain, and unfortunately the artistic men's team didn't qualify that year, and so we're just talking about who I'm going to room with, and I ended up rooming with like Tim Henman, and I thought the guys are winding me up. And I walked into my room, and there was Tim Henman and his coach there, which like for me was another great moment. And like these are these are just amazing stories from the Olympics that you just think, wow, is this like a pinch me moment kind of thing, So that was incredible. Like that was like another really cool moment. And another one was I met like an Olympic hero of mine of Steve Redgrave. So he I have followed him, and I've read all these books, and I read a lot of autobiographies that they inspired me, as an athlete. And I remember I met him at the women's competition, which was the day before, and I thought that was just brilliant, just seeing him and meeting so you just meet all your idols, and so yeah, it was so many like cool moments and
some big names though.
Yeah,
Gary.
just,
Blimey,
I'm just name dropping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any others when you throw
can-
out? You know. Yeah.
I can definitely do some name dropping from my Olympic experiences as well, and it's one of the coolest things about it. It's crazy, like you're just on the level playing field with these absolute sporting icons, and it's like, oh my god, you know, it's super surreal.